you could get a dealer license in a cardboard box as long as it has an address. One of the issues that all exotic car buyers face is sales tax. And every state has its own nuances. Some of them offer sales tax credit, some of them don't, some of them only offer it on new cars. But people think that dealers are just completely exempt from that, but that's not always true. So Ohio has its own set of nuanced rules, mostly because the Ohio Auto Dealers Association is made up of principals of franchise new car dealers. They are big lobbyists to the state of Ohio and the dealer board and how they make their rules, and they heavily influence the rules. The laws in Ohio governing dealers are greatly skewed towards the advantage of new car dealers. So for instance, it's not legal to be a broker in any sense of the word. New car dealers, it's actually illegal to pay a commission to a non-licensed salesperson. So you cannot pay referral fees or bird dogs or anything like that. People get around it all the time by just saying, well, it's a consulting fee or advertising or what. I mean, it's an unenforceable rule, but it exists nonetheless. And there's only sales tax credit for trade-ins for new cars. And all of this is to the benefit of new car dealers. It's in an effort to not allow anybody else to sell or broker new cars except the dealers. They want to protect their margins and their client base. They don't understand that brokers actually help them out, but that's neither here nor there. The most significant rule is one that used car dealers are not allowed to buy a car on MSO, i.e. a new car, title it, and resell it without paying sales tax. So even a used car dealer has to pay sales tax on a new car. And as far as I know, Ohio is one of the only states that has this rule. So of course, when I'm flipping new cars, I had to figure out a way around this because I can't pay sales tax on a car that I'm making money on. So I had some Montana and Alaska LLCs just like everyone else. But after a while, I determined that wasn't the best course of action for a number of reasons. And I said, well, let's figure out a better way to do this on a larger scale. Probably one of the biggest reasons was that Porsche was getting wise to this Montana LLC scheme. So they were putting all these addresses that the attorneys would use on their blacklist. So if you tried to buy a car and title it in a Montana LLC, they would not allow it because they knew you were probably doing that with the intention of flipping it. So I looked around at various states and getting another dealer license, and I landed upon New Hampshire. The main two reasons were that they had no state sales tax and also that they had very lax restrictions on a dealer license. So as the people in the DMV told me, quote unquote, you could get a dealer license in a cardboard box as long as it has an address. So I'm like, this is great. I already have a facility in Ohio. I don't need to have another facility and pay all this money for it and this and that. So I determined that, well, okay, my family lives in Maine. New Hampshire is a nice place as well. Maybe I'll get a place on a lake and then I can kind of use it as my vacation house. My dad was working for me at the time, and I think they had just recently sold their house, so they were actually living out of an Airstream trailer, maybe or maybe not, with pink flamingos in the front yard. So they were happy to take care of a place on a lake that I had bought. My dad's a boater and all that, so that was a good arrangement. So we landed on a lakefront condo in New Hampshire and asked the condo association board about, can we run a business here? Did all our homework beforehand, because why would I spend $250,000 on a condo to not be able to use it for the intended purposes? So we did all our homework and made the purchase. Started going through the hoops to actually obtain the dealer license. And we got cut off at the first pass by the condo association board. They said, nope, you can't have a business in the condo. It turns out that the president of the condo association was also a realtor, and she liked control. And she wanted to be the listing and selling agent for every condo that was transacted in this association. Well, since the previous owners didn't drink her Kool-Aid, they listed it with somebody else. So she had actually tried to sabotage the sale and do crazy things like, loosen bricks in the walkway and things like that. Because they didn't use her and we didn't use her either, she blackballed us on being able to run a business out of the condo. So she had enough proxies that she had a majority at every single board meeting. And everybody was like under fear of her because she would, retaliate. So nobody would stand up to her. So she voted us down, said you can't run a business there, with the reason being that, well, we don't want, UPS trucks coming in and out all the time and, disrupting the peace here. Turns out she runs her business out of her condo. Little hypocrisy there. She didn't care. We couldn't obviously register the business at the condo. So what do? My parents found this really cool house not too far from there that they could rent. It was not part of an association. They really liked it, so we decided to rent the house. So now I'm paying a mortgage on a condo and rent on this house. When the state trooper showed up to do the inspection for the dealer license, he said, no, won't pass. My parents are like, what do you mean it won't pass? There's really no regulation. They said we could get a dealer license out of a cardboard box. And he goes, well, yeah, those are the technical regulations, but they really don't want any more dealer licenses without, facilities and stuff like that. So even though they haven't changed the laws, they've just changed how they're enforcing it. So we're basically just denying all the applications that don't fit their arbitrary criteria that they haven't made public. And we even, we clarified this with the DMV, everything like that. And nowhere along the line did they tell us, well, these are the rules, but this is how we're actually enforcing them. All this money down the drain, and we still don't have a dealer license in New Hampshire, which is ironic because the motto on their license plates is live free or die. And they're by far the most conservative state in New England, with the granola people to the west in Vermont and the pseudo-Republicans in Maine and, Taxachusetts down south. It's a little island of freedom there that's not so free anymore. I was like, well, this isn't a total loss. I still own the property, so I can legally, title and register some cars there. So I used that for a few vehicles that I had bought where the dealer was like, well, no, you have to title and register it. You can't just flip it. But after a few cars, the ladies at the license bureau said, yeah, you can't do this anymore. We're like, what are you talking about? I have a property there. Like, this is totally legitimate. I'm not titling them here and then using them in other states, which a lot of people will do. And they get into residency restrictions. A lot of guys will get a license in Florida, but they're only there a couple months out of the year. That's kind of skirting the rules. I said, this is totally within the rules. I have a house. I have an address. I can title cars here. Yeah, well, we know what you're trying to do and we don't like it, so we're not going to title any more cars for you. I'm like, what the heck? You guys have all these arbitrary interpretations of rules that aren't actually on the books, and you're just enforcing them willy-nilly. At that point, I thought it best just to cut my losses. I was going through a divorce at the time, and I had started the dealership in Vegas at the same time, so I was paying 2 rents in Ohio, rent in Vegas, a showroom in Vegas, this condo in New Hampshire, and my expenses were out of control. And of course, I had bought the condo in 2007 and decided to sell it in 2009. So you can imagine how that went. Despite my terrible timing, New Hampshire's market didn't get hit that hard, and because it was a nice place and on the lake, I only lost 10% off of what I had paid for it. Granted, all the other costs of ownership, the interest in 2 years and the real estate commissions going to sell it, it actually cost me a lot more than that to own. Needless to say, when we went to sell it, because my dad and I are both stubborn and refuse to play political games, we did not cave to the tyrannical pressure of the realtor condo board president, and we decided to list it with a reputable realtor and sell it on our own. But in terms of the value itself, I really didn't take that much of a hit.
The story of your dream car starts with finding it, and the best way to do that is with Autotempest.com. Autotempest allows you to compare the results from Craigslist nationally with all the top listing sites. So visit Autotempest.com today, and before long, you'll be making some amazing car stories of your very own.